Local people or local photographers like to call this the mini sky, as in the Isle of Skye and the Old Man. As you can see, it's pretty gorgeous, and just another example of the beautiful coastline and landscapes that we have here in the north of Northern Ireland. So just thought I'd come out this evening up to this area about an hour and a half or so before sunset. The sun will be setting behind the mountains over in Donegal, and as you can probably tell on my face, the sun is dipping in and out from behind the clouds, so almost perfect conditions. Really still up here as well. Quite often you get quite a breeze blowing, which makes it quite difficult to work with the tripod. So as I quite often do when the sun is still maybe 90 minutes or so before sunset, as well as looking at maybe my final couple of compositions, I'm actually more focused on shooting away from the sun, i.e. not shooting directly into the sun. That just allows me to take advantage of that lovely warm evening light that's illuminating some of the rocks up here and some of the landscape up here. I think if you point your camera too early at that sun, you end up getting frustrated because you're having to use either multiple graduated filters or shoot multiple bracketed shots and blend them. And of course, if there is a huge dynamic range, as what there is at the moment, you might find that it just doesn't really work. So at the moment, think I've got a rough composition that I want to work on later, but for now what I've been doing is shooting towards where the sun is actually illuminating. And actually what I've been doing as well is I've been leaving the tripod behind and just shooting a single shot handheld, just over again where the sun is illuminating. I quite like doing that as well. You know, sometimes we can get so transfixed in using the tripod, and I remember I used to think to myself, well, it's not a proper landscape shot unless I'm using the big old tripod. And don't get me wrong, I love the sense of slowing down that the tripod gives me, but sometimes when I'm getting a fast enough shutter speed and I can work with a single frame and that I'm not blowing the highlights, pumping the ISO up just a little bit. But again, let's not worry too much about, you know, ISO 300, ISO 400. You know, these cameras can handle it. So shooting on the X-T2 with the 10-24, and if you remember from my last vlog up on the Causeway Coast, I've started to use the 10-24 a heck of a lot more. I'm really liking it, just sort of using it to really sort of bring in some of these sort of wide, you know, great vistas that we have over here on the north coast. So I'm going to carry on shooting here, start to work maybe on a couple of compositions for later as that sun really starts to dip. Hopefully we get some colour in these clouds. Binevenagh Mountain, rather beautiful. So I'm starting to get a little bit closer to the composition that I might sort of work with as the sun starts to dip down lower. It is just about to come out from behind a cloud. I still think it's going to be a little bit bright, and there's certainly not a huge amount of colour in the clouds. It's 25 to 9, sunsets in about another hour, so maybe by 9 o'clock, or yeah, about 9 o'clock, 9:15, we might start to get some colour. Midges are out in force, so kind of every couple of minutes it's like trying to get rid of the midges. So yeah, of course one of the challenges that you have with a wide angle is trying to give yourself, you know, enough of that dreaded foreground interest that seems to, you know, plague the wide landscape photographer. And up here the heather hasn't quite taken yet. There's a couple of little bits of kind of thrifty stuff going on that might work. Now we have some sort of nice light coming through now, and this light's probably going to get a little bit stronger over the next sort of 10-15 seconds as that sun comes out. I still think it's going to be a little bit too bright, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire off a couple of shots as that light is illuminated in the landscape, and then take the camera off the tripod and spend 5 minutes just looking at that composition, and then go back and just see whether I can fine tune it anyway. So I think I'm pretty happy. I think I'm pretty happy now with my composition. As I said, I took the camera off the tripod, really sort of study that foreground first and foremost. Put the camera back on the tripod, and then I've just been fine tuning it, and I think I've mentioned this before, it's trying to sort of create a little bit of a flow through the image, and also what am I excluding, and by excluding things am I including other things that maybe detract from the image. And there was first thing I noticed was the bottom left hand side of the frame. There was a darker area of the foliage that really wasn't bringing anything to the picture, and rather than simply zooming in, which meant I kind of changed the perspective, I raised my tripod up a bit and then raised the camera slightly different angle. Composition that I have set up will need a reasonable amount of cloud in the frame. Now at the moment there is a reasonable amount of cloud there. It's now about 5 minutes to 9. As I say, that sun probably the next 20 minutes, half an hour, is going to dip behind the mountain, so we won't get it right at sunset. But what I'm hoping to do, again, is perhaps, given the fact that I am quite happy with the composition, what I'm hoping to do is maybe take a couple of frames with that sun a bit higher in the sky for the foreground, and then watch to see, hopefully, how those clouds develop. And of course, one of the things I love about landscape photography, rather than running around trying to get multiple compositions here, yeah, I got a couple handheld ones earlier, but I think I'm going to go for one image this evening. And so while I'm waiting for that light to develop just a little bit more, I think I'm just going to kick back, relax, and enjoy the view, because it's rather beautiful. So that sun is now starting to really warm up, and I think that's very important. You know, I have spoken about this before. You really can fool yourself into thinking that the light is, you know, nice, and it may be nice, but of course it's going to get better. At the same time, you've also got to be aware of when you're going to be losing that light. Now, there's two chances that we're going to lose that light. There is thicker bands of cloud just above the mountains, and of course we will lose the direct sunlight once it goes behind the mountains. So now I'm going to start taking some shots that hopefully over the course of the next 45 minutes to blend different sections of those into a final image. But it's not been a bad place just to hang out. I haven't even been looking around too much looking for other compositions for a future date. I've just been enjoying the scenery. Thankfully the midges have dissipated a little bit, although having said that, I can maybe feel them coming back again. I can also hear a peregrine falcon over the way, so all in all, rather beautiful. So actually another benefit of doing this blending over time is, of course, as that sun sets, the immediate foreground here is starting to fall into shadow, and so it will mean, even though the light will be slightly harsher, blending it in using a layer and using opacity on that layer may allow me to just give a little hint of some of that sunset light, even though by now the foreground has lost a lot of that direct light onto it. So again, another benefit of sort of fixed on this composition and shooting throughout as the sun sets just allows me to pick up and pick out some of those nicer parts of the image. Now what I'm noticing is beautiful sort of strong light is starting to dissipate now off the side of the rocks. cloud is a little bit thick, as I said, just above the mountains across the way in Donegal. So we might start to now be thinking more about making images for the sky. Certainly the mid-ground, the fields are now in shadow, so they certainly won't be part of the final image. Well, they'll be part of the final image, but it'll be an image that I'll have taken maybe 20 minutes, half an hour ago. So now we're just hoping for some colour in the sky. Beautiful. So now, well, it's anyone's guess. I really don't think we're going to get any more light on the foreground or on the cliff face. It's all about those clouds. They're starting to purple up a little bit. So what I've started to do is, while I'd like them to take on a little bit more light, I'm kind of hedging my bets. I'm quite concerned that, well, I am quite concerned that we'll lose the light in the sky. So again, I'm hedging my bets. But as I said earlier, it's now, I think, all about the sky. Did also spot the peregrine falcon. Still not sure. I mean, the clouds over here are beautiful. Not only are the clouds over here not quite taking on that light, but they're actually starting to disappear. Whereas over here, not sure whether that's actually going to pick that up, but I'll show you what I'm looking at now. As I say, it's not necessarily I still think they may take on some colour, but it's the fact that they're starting to dissipate. It's either too many clouds or not enough. I don't think I've ever seen it so still up here. It is beautiful. So, got lovely clouds over here. Let me spin you around. Lovely clouds over there. Gorgeous. That I'm shooting into. So I don't think we're going to get it. Oh well. Just hang around now and watch the sunset, I think. Well, as I thought, nothing. As you can see up behind me here, not a cloud. And hopefully you can see rather nice behind me. I think I'm going to call that a night. I'll probably throw up the image anyway. Obviously the clouds will have been from probably 45 minutes or so before sunset, so they're not going to have a huge amount of colour in them. And while I don't necessarily think that the clouds up behind me to the right would have taken on that colour, I think they would have had some lovely colour in them. As that sun starts to dip down below the visible horizon, I think I'm going to call that a day, walk back to the car and drive home. Once again, I hope you've enjoyed watching this little foray into Binevenagh. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. Certainly we'll be back here. Hopefully next time, a little bit more luck with the clouds. Until next time, bye-bye.